Welcome to Chat It Up Sports, boys. I'm so happy to be back as at least starting the show. We got a hard out at 9 o'clock tonight, boys. We got feeding to do, but Greg Larnard to my right, I guess to your left. Is that right? And then Joseph Guthrie. We'll get to him very shortly. Very shortly. He's got a lot to talk about. The Georgia Bulldogs. We have a very special guest on coming up at 8:15. Ryan Shumpert of Rocky Top Insider and Vol Sports. Man, boys, it was a wonderful weekend in the NFL. Also, the madness of the Chiefs continues. So much more. Like and subscribe everywhere at Chat It Up Sports. Click that link, click that follow button, all the fun stuff, wherever we're at. And I think we might have one more young Malcolm Harris. Welcome in, brother.
What's up, guys?
He made it back.
We got him.
Hey,
we got
sorry
him.
about that. I didn't want to talk and my mic sound weird. What's up?
How you doing, man? New job.
Yeah, buddy. Oh, God.
Hit the ground running with the new job.
Making it?
His camera's frozen.
Oh, he's making it. All right.
It's a lot. I just got home.
We got audio. Video's a little scraggly.
Is it?
You're good. You're good now. You're good now.
Okay.
Keep rolling. You keep rolling.
Sweet. Let's keep rolling.
Oh, man. All right. Before we get Shump on, we talk a lot of Vols. We're going to preview coming week versus Georgia. But, Joseph, talk to us. How you feeling after Saturday? Ole Miss. Tough day down there.
Initial reaction, how am I feeling? I feel all right. I mean, we can finally put to bed the hasn't lost to a team other than Alabama in a regular season in 4 years. That very niche, like we can finally put that stat to bed. So I'm kind of happy for that. But man, it's one of those things where it's like I knew a game like this was coming, where you were eventually going to get to a point where your offensive struggles or your inability to not turn the ball over was going to bite you. And this game actually ended up going the complete opposite of what I had predicted. So in the preview, I thought if anybody's front seven is going to do what Ole Miss's front seven was going to do, it would be Georgia's. And that was just not the case. Walter Nolan and the boys absolutely put Georgia's offensive line in a blender. I saw on social media that several people were like, it's just screens. It's all screens, and they know it's coming. It's like, well, man, when your offensive line's getting absolutely worked, you have to get the ball out fast because you can't run it. You can't run it. And this has been something which is a huge culture shock for me as a Georgia fan, is just the sheer inability to run the ball, and it doesn't seem like it's going to come back. Prior to that game, they were like 90th or 93rd or something like that in the country in running the ball. They are now 104th in running the ball as they dropped a measly 59 yards on the ground. Boys, there's a saying in college football. You build from the front and you build back. So you start at the line and you build back. And Georgia's offensive line this year is just a liability. We thought it was a anomaly in the Kentucky game. We thought, first SEC road game, Kentucky's defense is veteran laden. Little did we know this was a preview of what was going to be a pattern of struggles and not just an anomaly. Looking at the drive chart, man, first touchdown was basically handed to you after an interception. You get the ball inside the 20, and you actually end up having to go all the way to fourth down to get that touchdown. And after that, it's just punt, end of half. You come out in the second half, you get a field goal, and then you establish some ability to move the ball. Like looking at the drive chart, they had actually gained some yardage, but Carson gets a ball tipped, picked on fourth down. You fumble the ball. You fumble the ball first. Nate Frazier fumbles the ball. That kills your momentum, gives the ball back to Ole Miss. Carson throws a pick that's tipped at the line, kills your momentum, ball back to Ole Miss. Frazier fumbles again, ball back to Ole Miss. It felt like anytime you started to build some kind of offensive momentum, you just shot yourself in the foot. again. And it was one of those games where it was like, finally, Carson, like, I'm not going to put that interception on Carson, because when it's tipped at the line, that's just kind of like, you don't know what way that ball is going to spin. So I'm willing to, it still counts on his stat sheet, but I'm willing to give him some grace on that one. But in your finally not turning the ball over in terms of throwing it to the other team, you couldn't get off the mat in terms of the fumbles and the turnovers, and you end up losing the turnover battle anyways. I mean, this is shades of 2019 if you're a Georgia fan, and that was a dark time in the Kirby Smart era, because the offense was just a struggle to watch. I mean, I pulled some stats from Dogs on Top. He's incredible. Been following him for a few years now. This is the fewest points per game in the Kirby Smart era. I know we haven't finished the season out, so you got to factor in those last 3 games, which doesn't look like they're going to factor in your favor. This is the fewest points per game in a Kirby Smart era with 30.6. They are 15th in the SEC in rushing. This is the first time you were able to be 15th in the SEC in rushing, because there were only 14 teams up until this year. You are 83rd in third down percentage, and you lead the FBS in drops. That's not going to carry you far. You're not going to have success. I was doing some math on this earlier, and I mean, it might be a little bit nitpickish, but I took the Tennessee Tech game out because, for all intents and purposes, it's Tennessee Tech. Georgia has more dropped passes than they do offensive touchdowns.
Wow.
On the season.
Yikes.
They have 27 offensive touchdowns, not counting the Tennessee Tech game. If you count the Tennessee Tech game, they're more, but I mean, come on, guys. It's Tennessee Tech. You have more dropped passes than you do offensive touchdowns. And I don't know any kind of team that has accomplished any of the goals that they had preseason when you're doing that. I remember this vividly, Miggie, after the Kentucky game. We sat there and we talked about the receiver core, and we said, we see a whole lot of good, not great.
Yep.
Well, what we thought was a whole lot of good, not great, turned out to be a whole lot of average, not good. I don't know what's happened to Dylan Bell. It seems, I don't know if he's playing hurt or if he's just regressed a little bit, or if maybe now that he's gathering more attention because you don't have Brock and Ladd to pull eyes away from you, and that's interrupted his production. But Dylan Bell is not what he was last year. Arian Smith, as much as I love him for sticking with the program, Arian Smith has just never really been what we hoped he would be. He's really fast. But it doesn't matter how fast you are if you can't catch the ball. Delp has been kind of a ghost this season. I mean, I had high hopes for him. I didn't expect him to live up to the production that Brock had. I didn't expect anybody to live up to the production that Brock had, because that's just setting yourself up for failure. But Delp has been kind of a ghost this year. I think he's got less than 10 catches on the season. Lawson Lucky has been a shining spot for me. I think personally he should be tight end 1, but just bad on the offensive side of the ball, man. And if you look at it and you look at the drive chart, your defense didn't play horribly. I mean, they got put in some really bad situations, and you held Ole Miss to field goals. I mean, 1 touchdown in the first half and then 3 field goals. I mean, you're doing the best you can against that kind of offense with that kind of production, those kind of receivers. And I know their leading receiver was out, but who was
when you're turning the football over like that, like, it just gives the other team short fields, and it makes it really difficult on your defense.
Yeah, and it's one of the things we keyed on early in the preview was whose defense was going to be more opportunistic, who was going to give their offense shorter fields, and it ended up being Ole Miss's defense that was more opportunistic. I mean, just to, I guess take a little joke at my own fan base. Backup quarterbacks in Kirby. I mean, come on, man. We knew Austin Simmons come in. Dude. It just happens, man. I mean, it's just like once is a coincidence, twice is a couple, three's a pattern. Like, backup quarterbacks have not been your friend if you're a Georgia fan. So Austin Simmons comes in and just absolutely,
great
rolls down the field.
First drive.
He did everything he had to do. He prevented UGA from steamrolling you with momentum early on and killing the crowd in the first quarter.
Yeah.
By him having one successful drive and moving the ball down the field, he kept Ole Miss in that game. Austin Simmons, like, give that man a game ball. I know he ended up not playing and Jackson Dart came back in and balled, but
that
Austin
saved them.
Simmons, yeah, it definitely did a lot for them. But man, I can't get over the biggest glaring thing to me was your offensive line just got whipped. You just got whipped.
It did.
And it's one of those things where it's like I was talking to my brother about it, and he was like, you know what, like we should have done this and we could have done this, and like, what are we doing? That, like, we are Georgia. And I'm like, man, there's some games. They are some games where you can look and you can dig and you can try to find answers, but sometimes you just get whipped. And it'd been about 4 years since anybody other than that team with the script day in Tuscaloosa had really just put it on you. Ole Miss put it on you. And you just got to tip your cap and you got to say, man, that front seven's real. And they played lights out in a position where it felt like they had to. Their playoff hopes are on the line. You can't take a third loss. Ole Miss is a good team, man. And I'm kind of mad at them, not necessarily because they beat the Dogs, but because how do you lose to Kentucky, man? Like, how did you lose? And I get the Ole Miss, like, I get the LSU game, even though the LSU game, they led wire to wire. Like, they never trailed in that game until the overtime touchdown. And I just, like, if I had to compare that game to this game, the one difference for LSU was they have Kyron Lacey. They have somebody that can go out there and win a one-on-one and just put it to the corner. And Georgia doesn't. You don't have a guy like that on the outside. So that on top of not being able to run it and on top of Beck running for his life is a disastrous trio to have on a rainy day at 3:30 or 2:30 Central in Oxford. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry that you had a terrible week. And somebody that also
it's going to be 2 bad weeks in a row. I'm sorry to say.
2 bad weeks in a row.
We'll see,
and our guest will be writing about your second bad week. From Rocky Top Insider, the man with a wonderful head of hair, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ryan Shumpert. 3 claps, 1 time, boy.
What's up,
Shump?
I can't say we're sitting here on Monday. Your feel for a game can change a lot over the week, but I don't come in here with the same vibe that I'm going to be writing about a big Tennessee win on Saturday, if I'm being honest.
Well, we hope you are. Sorry, Joseph. We just had to give him a hard time.
you're good, man.
I'm worried. Somebody, my aunt asked me today, she was like, how are we feeling about the Georgia game? I was like, those dogs are going to be mad. Those dogs are going to be real mad. That is not a spot you want to be in. You don't want to piss off good teams. And I still think Georgia's a good team. And Joseph mentioned it earlier on, like, this is probably a 2-loss Georgia team that's still going to have a chance to make the playoffs. And it's a weird spot. We've had 2 weird weeks where Tennessee and A&M were up top this week, and you had A&M and LSU up top of the standings, and you've had your typical Georgia Bama. Who knows what it's going to be like? Shump, after seeing the Mississippi State game, we'll get into the Nico stuff. How are you feeling about this team going into what is going to be the biggest shifting weekend for the Vols so far?
Certainly one of the hardest game you circled before the season, and despite Georgia showing some cracks and maybe not just being elite, I think it still feels the same way to me at this point. I think the Ole Miss beating Georgia was very bad for Tennessee, both from the playoff picture as a whole and for Georgia in desperation mode with Kirby Smart at home. It just feels like a really bad spot for Tennessee to be in. So kind of specifically to Tennessee against Mississippi State, like, you saw the offense continue to play a little bit better. Again, really small sample size. You kind of only had a half with Nico in there. You finally saw a first drive touchdown. You saw a couple big plays touchdowns. Those have been missing. But you also saw the things that continue to make you pull your hair out with this Tennessee offense, with turnover in the red zone, turnover on downs on a drive you start at the 9-yard line, and against the worst defense in the SEC by far. So Tennessee's offense, it does feel like they continue to get a little bit better. And I do think Nico has continued to play better when he's been in there, but it doesn't feel like any sort of big click is coming for me with this Tennessee offense, and it keeps this team being a very flawed football team. But heck, I mean, I think you can say that about just about everybody in the country at this point.
Yeah, you certainly can. There's a lot of flaws for a lot of different teams so far right now. And, you know, one thing that I saw you wrote about after the game was the rush defense, and me thinking about this Tennessee team. And maybe I'm going to get a little ahead of myself because I'm thinking about the upcoming game against Georgia. Joseph just talked about how the Bulldogs haven't been really running the football that well. And generally, when you think of this Tennessee team and the defense, the way that it's played, that's been one of their strengths. However, over the last 2 games, they've been giving up about 174 yards a game, as you wrote about. I know Heupel talked about how they kind of were just a little out of position. They weren't playing it right, this and that and the other thing. And there's been just like 1 or 2 big plays in which they've kind of just run wild against Tennessee and, you know, got eaten up a lot of yardage. What have you seen from this run game? Are you confident going into this Georgia game and, you know, that it is things that can easily be fixed?
I think some of it is fixable. But at the same time, like, yeah, there was a 40-yard run to Mississippi State game. I think there was also 5 other runs of over 10 yards. And like Tennessee just really hasn't had that, especially this season. But heck, I mean, ever since Tim Banks and Josh Heupel have been there, as many flaws as they've had in the pass defense, the run defense has been pretty solid. That's been their bread and butter. So I think it is worrisome. It's hard to 100% put it on this, but the Keenan Peele injury, I think, looms large. I feel like he was definitely their best linebacker when it comes to run defense. And look, they were really good in run defense against Alabama, and a lot of that was because of how they could contain Jalen Milroe's legs. But Keenan Peele gets hurt on the first drive of the Florida game. They've played, counting that game, 4 games since. 3 of the 4 biggest rushing games are right in that span outside of the Alabama game. So I think they miss him. I think they're young there, and then I do think it is some of just the missed run fits, and some of that is from the defensive line. Not just all on the linebackers, but it does feel like that's a group that's trending in the wrong direction, and you don't hit the panic button on it because the defense is still playing good as a whole. But it kind of feels like at some point that might come back to bite them, and certainly Georgia's run offense is not what it typically is, but still some good backs there. And I think this is going to be, with the quarterback uncertainty for Tennessee and Carson Beck's struggles, I think whoever can kind of control the line of scrimmage and run the ball in this game is, you know, probably the one you have the most confidence in winning.
Yeah, it kind of worries me. Like, I actually thought Kirby was going to turn it around this week because you knew they had to try to establish the run game, and you're like, oh man, they're going to figure it out eventually. Like, that's what they went out and got ETN for. That's what they got these guys for. It just didn't quite click. And you've seen a couple flashes. I'm blanking on his name. What's your 3rd string running back that did so well week 1, Joseph?
Frazier.
Yeah. It's like guys like that. You're like, they just have them. They just have this plethora of backs, and it hadn't come along yet. And man, it just kind of comes back to it. It's like, well, this is the game. You know, the narratives start to play in your mind. You're like, oh, this is the game we miss Peely. This is the game we really miss Peely. And it's like, God, I don't want to say that, but you just know those things just come to fruition for some reason. It just always happens every year. Let's spoil the party. These SEC teams are going to beat up on each other, and you're going to figure out how many 2-loss teams are in there. I do want to touch on the Nico thing real quick. That's what a lot of people were asking about, was like, what have you heard this so far this week? We know it's upper body. Exactly. Was it precautionary? Was it more than precautionary? What have you heard?
I think it was a little bit more than precautionary. I don't know if tentative is probably the right word. Tentative to believe Josh Heupel.
Look at that freaking vocabulary that boy's got.
Dang, bro.
It's a balancing act because, look, to put it bluntly, Josh Heupel just lies about injuries all the time. But it's a little awkward calling a coach a liar that you cover. So I think he's more just playing stuff coy. He was very specific with his wording today when asked about it, that Nico was out there with him. Did he practice? I'm not really sure. He didn't say that. So I don't think it's a season-ending deal, but I do think it is up in the air whether he plays this week. I don't think it's just a given that he's going to be out there. Obviously, that radically changes the dynamic of the game. Not only are you going to a backup quarterback, you're going to a walk-on backup quarterback who has played very, very little football in his career in such an incredibly difficult environment. So, it's hard to say sitting on Monday whether he's going to play or not. If you made me guess, I would say yes, but I also don't think it's just a sure thing.
Okay.
Well, I know you said that Coach Heupel lies a lot, but I did read something earlier today in which said that he says Nico Head is in great shape to play on Saturday. So you think that's more kind of being facetious, or I mean, when I saw that, I was like, I felt good about him saying he's in great shape to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do feel good about that. But look, after the Kent State game, he sat there and was like, Lance Hurd would have played tonight if this was a big game. And then Lance Hurd didn't play 7 days later at Oklahoma. And there's countless examples of that happening. Now, what I will say to the positive side of it, when Heupel came to his press conference on Saturday after the game, he was kind of like walking up to the podium, laughing, big smile. Like he knew the Nico questions were coming. And you get into conspiracy theory weeds of reading these things, and you're like, well, if he was just lying, like maybe he wouldn't have been quite as positive, quite as chummy about the situation as he was. So it's hard to say for sure, but just him saying someone he expects him to be ready, he thinks they're in a good chance to play. That oftentimes in the past he's said that, and then player he's discussing about does not play. I mean, last year Keenan Peely is just an all-time one. Keenan Peely broke his collarbone the first game of the season. Everybody knew he was out for the year. He refused to say he was out for the year the entire season. It was November, and he was like, we might get him back. It's like, no, he missed the first 2 weeks of spring practice. He was still hurt, and he refused to say that he was out for the year. So he's just always very, very coy about the injuries.
Very coy.
Yeah. Well, I got another one about on Nico, and then I'll let Malk and Jay, if you guys got anything, jump in here. Feel free to jump in. But Nico, there's been a lot of conversation. I know us and you have talked about Nico and his development and him still being a young quarterback and things like that in the SEC. What have you thought about his growth and his maturation process as the season's unfolded? He's had to deal with some adversity, and I know we didn't get a chance to talk to you after the Alabama game, but it seemed like both quarterbacks were like taking shots, kept missing, take a shot, keep missing, take a shot, keep missing. They both were kind of going back and forth, and then Nico finally hit one. And, you see that big play to Squirrel White and then Dante Thornton in this game. It seems like, okay, like I'm getting a little, personally as a fan, I'm getting a little bit of more confidence in him throwing the deep ball. Seemed like he maybe worked on, getting a little air under it or whatnot. But what have you thought about the maturation process of him sort of dealing with some adversity and hopefully for us Tennessee fans coming out the other side and being a little bit more consistent, hitting some of those big plays?
It definitely felt like the second half against Alabama was a turning point. I mean, I almost left the Alabama game like it felt like the dude had the yips, like on the open ones. Like all the throws he made in that game were good coverage, tight throws, and he missed a lot of open. Even in the second half when he played better, he missed Brew down the seam on what could have been a big play when he overthrew him. I thought the Kentucky game was the best game he's played in his Tennessee career. I thought he was really good in that game. I thought he made 2 really good throws that, if catches are made that should have been made, they're 120 yards combined for 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
And I thought he played good in the first half against Mississippi State. It seems like he's starting to hit some of the deep balls more. I think it's I think where he's still limited right now is this does not seem like there's, 1, a lot of trust in him. 2, he's very crisp in the red zone. It feels like Tennessee's red zone offense is very reliant on Dylan Sampson runs it in. Great. If not, they're going to have to settle for a field goal. And then I guess second, I think the challenge just gets a lot bigger this week when he goes on the road again. I mean, it's been a reoccurring theme in Josh Heupel's tenure, struggling in at least big electric environments on the road, the offense struggling. So I think it's one thing for it to be good at home, and a big part of that is the offensive line. The pass protection has been, while not perfect, a whole lot better the last few weeks than it was in the Oklahoma game and the Arkansas game. I think when you put some of those things together, you're facing a better defense. What Nico looks like, how much trust he has in what he's seeing, and kind of also anticipating things when guys aren't running as open will be, I guess, a big sign or a big point to look to of how much better he's gotten over this past month compared to some of his shortcomings against Oklahoma and Arkansas.
What's going on, Shump? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, perfect. So I tweeted this out yesterday, and I said that this is arguably the biggest game of Josh Heupel's Tennessee career. I'm just being honest. I think it is, for the fact that what you just said literally 35 seconds ago. Josh Heupel coach teams don't do well when they're playing on the road, and they look like a completely different football team. I do think that from a matchup standpoint, Tennessee matches up extremely well with Georgia to win this game outright. I really do, and we'll get into it. But is there anybody on that Georgia sideline that puts fear in your heart? Because I can't find one. I don't see one that just scares me to death that can change the outlook of this game.
I'm with you. Like it just feels. Look, that's the one of the few shortcomings of this job is you don't get to sit around and you're working on Saturday, so you don't get to watch all these college football games. But the little bits that you're always following scores, the little bits I have watched of Georgia a couple games this year, it's just like there's no playmakers that really strike a bunch of fear in defenses. And look, that's probably a lot of reasons why Carson Beck struggled. I do think the running backs Frazier and Etienne are good. It feels like the run blocking has been a bigger issue than necessarily those guys, but it just feels like this Georgia team lacks the punch and the overwhelming talent that the last couple has, where it just felt like they could overwhelm you on the line of scrimmage, and they always had at least one or two skill guys that were just a matchup nightmare. So I'm with you on that front. It feels like Tennessee, just from a line of scrimmage standpoint, matches up way better than they did 2 years ago going into Athens, and it feels like that gives them more of a fighting chance. And that's the thing that, when it comes to Tennessee playing on the road, like they should feel better about now, is in the past, the offense had to be close to perfect in these big games.
Absolutely.
Now you have a little bit of room for error, which is why I was a little surprised the line was as big as it was. Maybe some of that's hedging on potentially Gaston Moore playing. But it definitely has a different feel, this matchup does, than it has the past couple of years, which is, to your point of it being such a big game for Heupel, it feels gettable, and he certainly needs to get one of these big ones on the road at some point, and the ramifications of this one for SEC championship race, for college football playoff, would obviously be huge.
Good stuff.
All right, well, I got it. Oh, go ahead, Joseph.
Oh, yeah, okay. To play off a little bit of what Miggie said, Shump, I kind of wanted to ask about, I saw a clip, I think it was from Heupel's press conference today, and you had said something about how his just refusal to acknowledge that a guy's out for the season. He chose to take a stance when somebody had asked him about a big game, how he was treating it and how he was getting the team to treat it. Do you take anything away from him being like, every week is your biggest week of the season, as opposed to looking at this as like these are your playoff hopes. This is Georgia at home. Like you should look at it a little bit more than just nameless, faceless opponent. Like last week going in, treating it a little bit differently than you're playing Mississippi State coming up. Like, do you take anything away from that, or do you feel more like it's coach speak, or what are your thoughts?
I thought it was interesting because he's kind of said he's leaned more to the other side in the past when asked that question. Not that he's gone all out of, this is the biggest game of the season. He's a coach speak guy, but he's been like, yeah, we all know how important this game is. Like, you don't have to tell the players the ramifications. So he hasn't, before today, he really hasn't gone with the all out, like, it's just another game. The next game's the biggest game. So this one's the biggest game. So I found that interesting. I don't know what exactly I gleaned from it, but it definitely did feel like a little bit of a change of approach from how he, at least to the media, has talked about games like this in the past.
Gotcha.
All right, so I wanted to quickly ask about the offensive line, because I know you were talking about Georgia's offensive line, and you kind of made a comment about our offensive line and how you feel like it's gotten a little bit better. And I know you do the weekly PFF grades. I was just curious how much you put into those PFF grades. I know, you can make them stats or grades or whatever. You can make them look one way or the other, but in the grading system, you get below like a 60 or so, it's like a backup level type of player. And every single one of the offensive linemen were graded under a 60. And I know the offensive line hasn't been great this year, but what is it about the offensive line that hasn't been so good? And how much do you really put into those PFF grades?
Well, I would say, for one, the PFF grades, I don't put much into the grading scale. Like you mentioned, like the backups one.
Yep.
From their scale, rarely do players grade out very well. At least on a consistent basis. Now, as a whole, it's something that's like it's interesting to look at. It's a good tool. I think there's something to it. I definitely don't think it's the Bible. I definitely don't think it is for line of scrimmage play, especially offensive line play. I don't think it's perfect. So I think, to me, what's more surprised me about Tennessee's offensive line this year is the run blocking issues. Like, I think you could have seen a path to the pass protection struggling, especially the way it has the last month, where it's just been like below average. it was certainly a little bit more on the radical side against Oklahoma and Arkansas. But look, Oklahoma, they had 2 backup offensive tackles in, so that's maybe not shocking that it did happen in that game. But like Javonte Spraggins, who's been a multi-year, really good right guard for Tennessee, really good in run blocking, has not played very well this year. Cooper Mays has really been the one guy that's been consistently solid. I figured with what they had in the interior, which I thought was good, in Campbell, who was at least solid enough last year, that they would be better run blocking this season than they've been, and a little bit better in pass pro too. But I think when you talk about Campbell, who has bad knees, and then a brand new redshirt freshman starting, or I guess a true sophomore, and Lance Hurd starting for the first time at left tackle, you were like, yeah, I can see how they could struggle in pass pro. The stuff in the run game has been a little bit more surprising to me.
Yeah, especially it's hard to even say that because of Sampson's incredible season. It's like, wow,
yeah,
holy crap, this is our guy. Like, and Miggie has talked about it for a long time. Like when Sampson got his shot, it was go time. It was go time. Yeah. We couldn't wait. And there's a guy down in Miami that Greg really likes from last year, but it's changed a lot. Sampson's now the guy. And I'll say that, like, I just can't believe like the grades are as bad as they are, considering what Sampson's production's been. I still think there's that potential for this like offense to open up per se. But I mean, we're 10 weeks in now, 11 weeks in now. Like, do you still feel like that there's potential magic, or are we kind of seeing what we're going to see the rest of the season?
I feel like we're kind of, for the most part, seeing what we're going to see. Can they be a little bit more efficient? Can they keep getting a little bit better? Like, sure. I think in a lot of that is about Nico and the fact that you have a first-year starting quarterback. But I'm past the point of thinking you're going to see like some true breakout in Tennessee become like a top 10 offense. I just don't think that's in the stars this year. And to go to, I mean, I was a huge Jalen Wright guy too, like Greg was. Like, I thought he was awesome. And Sampson, what he's done this year has been so impressive because he just didn't seem like a bell cow guy at all. And he is no one's really been a bell cow in Heupel's 3 years here. And he's become the guy, 25 carries a game, every game, carrying the run game. It's not like it's a lot of gaping holes. And, I think Cole Kublik does a lot of good breakdowns of that. And then so does David Oven, does good pieces for these big games where he like talks to coaches and just seeing their thoughts. And it's all the people to know about offensive line play are like, Dylan Sampson is getting a lot more than what's there. So for him to show the elusiveness, we know what he can do as a pass catcher, but just the short yardage physicality, the ability to hold up over courses of a ton of carries over games, and then doing that week after week. It's been super impressive. I thought he'd be good. I thought he'd be like a second team all SEC guy this year. But he's been the best running back in the SEC, and he's just done it at a really, really consistent rate that, speaks a ton to his improvement in his work ethic.
Well, especially like all the shot Genty's getting, you're like, that gummit, dude. Like, if it wasn't for that, you're like, Sampson's probably, because of how much publicity Tennessee's going to get, night games, all the BS, comes with it, like the story, and you're like, dude, Sampson would probably be like a running back scapegoat in New York if it wasn't for Genty. This is our 1 year. It's our running back 1 year
like this. Yeah, especially a year like this when like there was so much hype around the quarterbacks, especially in the SEC going into this year, and none of them have been particularly good. Like, This would have been the year that it felt like a running back could have gotten the invite to New York, and obviously it will happen with Genty with just insane numbers he put up. So yeah, definitely kind of a missed opportunity. I don't even know what the award is that goes to the best running back every year. I'm sure Sampson will be a candidate or a finalist for the Doak Walker, but he's got no chance to win. It's going to be Genty.
Who is your Heisman right now? Give me your top three.
Travis Hunter 1, Ashton Genty 2, Dylan Gabriel 3.
Ball.
What? Look, like it's insane. Charles Woodson won the Heisman, and I know like a lot of people listening to this, very touchy subject. For being a two-way guy. He had like 11 catches for 250 yards and returned the punt for a touchdown. Travis Hunter's got like 80 catches. He's going to have 1,000 yards on top of being one of the 3 best corners in the country. It's insane. I can't remember anyone doing what he's done. And now you have it. The fact Colorado's actually really good, or at least good. They're going to go 8-4, 9-3, 10-2, like way better than anybody expected. And he's such a huge part of that.
Look at that smile.
You just got to believe, Sean. Sometimes you
That's
just gotta
small.
believe. Ain't that right,
Just gotta
CG?
believe.
Dang.
I think you can say that to all of us.
Yeah, I gotta buy Miggie.
Yeah.
If Colorado, what is it, 8 wins?
Oh,
8
dude, they're
wins.
already.
Colorado jersey.
Yeah,
Wait, they already.
they're at 7.
One
That's
more.
7. Yeah.
One more.
Yeah, if they get to 8 wins, I have to buy Mickey a custom Colorado jersey with his his Instagram handle.
That's
I
This is
really,
gonna be great.
I really wish Miggy would have lost the bet though, because he said if he would have lost the bet, he would have had to go to a local bar downtown, ride the mechanical bull in a bra.
That
For
would've
that
been
content
that
would
would
have
have
been
been
better.
that would have been much better. That's for the content. Now if you
Yeah,
go
you
ride
gotta.
that
It's always
bull,
content.
if you go ride that bull with your your hashtag, your Instagram social media handle on there, might not be that bad.
You
I actually
know,
I actually looked it up this week, Biggie. It's gonna be real. I'm gonna have to go custom because you can't get. It's like too many letters for them to do it off Fanatics. So I'm gonna have to go seeking, boys. I don't even know where to go for this.
Listen, no, Miggy is fine. That is, I do not want you to go over and above and beyond.
I bet's a bet, Biggie. If I falter, but I think I'm gonna keep doubling down on the bra bull riding.
You're gonna
Yeah, we're
get
gonna
me.
see that.
It's not. It's only a matter of when.
It
It's
might
not
cost me
how.
thousands of dollars in jerseys, but yeah, I'm gonna get there.
No, Miggy will have a
Jerseys
Miggy
later.
take. Miggy will have a Miggy take at some point about Joe Burrow looking like Sam Bradford 2.0 or something. Some shit
Hypothetically, he
How
would
did
say
we
that.
not? How did we
Yeah.
not make a bet on that one?
Like that.
man?
We should have made some
That
sort
Dude
of
cost
bowl
us
bet
5
on that.
touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I want to go switch over to the defense, Shump, and I want to ask you specifically about one player, and then I want to give you a broad question for my second one. First of all, we got to keep it local with Chattanooga. Boo Carter, big interception in that game. He's played exceptionally well this season. I think better than a lot of people would have thought, and playing more than I think a lot of people would have thought going into this season. So first, touch on that, and then second, if he's not the most surprising player or whatever it may be on this defense, give me somebody else who's really caught your eye that's played above what you thought maybe coming into this year or just lately.
Well, I think Tennessee's secondary is the surprise of the team this year. There were just so many questions about it, and I think for Boo, you envision this potentially being how it went down. This was the ideal situation of get playing time early, get more and more reps. Obviously, a two-way guy in high school, get more and more comfortable in Tennessee's system, and then by the back half of the year, he's kind of grabbed the reins of that starting job. Not that he plays every single snap at the star spot, but he is the true starter, and he's been awesome. I think, I don't know, you try not to be over dramatic about these things or be in the moment. I think he's, from a pure talent standpoint, one of Tennessee's most talented defensive backs in the last 10 years, and it's just going to be awesome. It's been, Willie Martinez, Tennessee's defensive back coach, has been so tentative to play young defensive backs, frankly, and the fact that he's coming in and was playing right away and playing as many snaps now as he is, I think that says a lot. Finally, we got to see full reign, him returning punts on Saturday, which was the one thing I was really hoping we'd just see from the start of the year. And we saw it a little bit and looked like, I understood it at the time. He looked a little bit, it was a little more adventurous when he returned punts. And he had one the other night that was a little bit of an adventure too, that makes you nervous. But it's Squirrel White had those adventures. Jermon McCoy had those adventures. So if they're gonna be shaky back there catching punts, just put the guy with the high ceiling. So I'm excited to see more of him in that role too. I mean, the rest of the secondary, I think the guy Jermon McCoy's been incredible. But I was pretty high on him coming into the season. I think Will Brooks is the one that was just he played a little bit at the end of the year last year and was kind of shaky. And it was is this really the plan? Are they really going to start this white walk on at safety in year 4? This can't possibly be the reality. And it's been the reality, and he's just been really, really solid. I mean, he's not an all SEC guy, but he's in the right place at the right time. He's tackled well. He's made a number of really big plays now. Obviously, to play the still the Alabama game, I'll argue his biggest play that game is when he made the shoestring tackle on Jalen Milroe on that QB sneak on maybe the second drive of the game. Would have been a 70-yard touchdown if he didn't make that tackle. The interception at Kentucky flipped the game. The pick six at NC State was kind of what started the onslaught in that one. I never would have expected him to have the type of year that he's had, and he's been really solid and then stepped up and made some really big plays and big moments.
Harrison Smith 2.0, baby.
That's right. Knoxville's own Harrison Smith.
Yeah.
Knoxville
Knox Catholic, baby.
Yeah.
He was Knox Catholic, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
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 Funny story. My brother, he played football at Furman, and Harrison Smith's brother was on the team and was his roommate. He's played some Fortnite with Harrison Smith and PAX.
Nice. Is he any good at Fortnite?
I think he was better than my brother. Is what. Look, I think we're far enough. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I think we're far enough removed from it now, though. But the year that they got killed by the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, there was a big rumor, conspiracy theory on Vikings Twitter after that week that a bunch of their defensive players were playing Fortnite late in the night that week. One of them had their gamer tag was their name or something like that, and I literally can confirm that was true because my brother at midnight on the Wednesday night of the NFC Championship was playing with Harrison Smith and a couple other the Vikings players on defense.
Oh my God.
Yes.
We're gonna, and now our Minnesota viewership has gone up. You just created the controversy. Thank you, Ryan Shumpert.
Yeah, don't clip that. let the people find it.
Listen, we gotta get the TikTok numbers up. You're in now, dude.
You told
can't
us
say it
for
on
the
a live
content.
show.
That's
it's
right.
live now, brother. It's
Once
live now.
once Miggie is riding a mechanical bull in the bra, y'all are good to put that out. That's
virtual handshake. Virtual handshake. Virtual handshake. That bad boy.
In the other head.
Okay, that's good to know. One more thing. Do you got a football question? I was gonna go give him
I've got a football question. I'm just curious because I know we won't get a chance to talk to you on Thursday during our live show. I thought I'd just ask. I know some of the guys, have asked a little bit about Georgia, but just give me your early thoughts on this game going into it. I heard Tennessee was a major underdog in this going into this game. Obviously, it's going to be in Athens. It's really hard to predict how Georgia's going to play just because, you've seen them play so great, obviously in the second half of Alabama, the entire game for Texas, even though Carson Beck turned the football over a bunch, they were able to win that game. College football has just been really wacky this year, and I know it's probably hard to quantify here on a Monday, but talk to me about your early thoughts going into the Saturday game between the hedges, Georgia, Tennessee. College game day is going to be out there. Environment's going to be buzzing.
Yeah, my thought is 21-17 Georgia, something in that range. I just think what I said earlier, desperate Georgia team at home, that's just hard to bet against.
Yeah,
in any spot. And then you add the fact Tennessee has struggled in big games on the road. Georgia defense has had Tennessee's number under Josh Heupel more than any other. I think the physicality that Georgia's corners play with gives Tennessee a lot of issues. And look, I just continue to think this is an offense that doesn't have an elite guy. A handful of solid guys. I'll continue to wonder why Dante Thornton doesn't play more than he does because I think he's their best receiver. But I think it's going to be hard for Tennessee to create a lot of separation out wide. And it's just hard for me to have a ton of confidence in Tennessee's offense to do enough to win. I do think, and I think y'all were talking about this with the Georgia Ole Miss game before, turnovers, and it's basic turnovers are always a big thing, but we've seen that be an issue for Tennessee's offense at times this season, and certainly against Georgia, it's been a big issue for them. And Carson Beck's obviously thrown a ton of interceptions. To me, that feels like a big one, but just a huge thing in this game, given I think both defenses have the upper hand in the matchup against the offense.
Yeah, there's going to be. It's got that vibe to it. This is going to be a pissed off Georgia team that's going to let you have it. It's either going to let you have it, whether that's defensively, one side of the ball. I don't think this Tennessee team is going to rock your world offensively, anyways. But clearly, Georgia hasn't either. So this is going to be the 21-17 thing. I was like, man, that seems slow, but it's probably where it's going to be living. Give me a minute to 90 seconds on basketball. I know we're not really in college basketball season to the general public, but got to watch the Louisville game. This looks like a very different team. What are you thinking so far?
Yeah, I think, general expectations for me is somewhere in the 3 to 5 seed range. It continues to be a high floor because of how good they are defensively. I don't think that's going to be very different this season. I do think they have a lot more shooters on this team. I think Chaz Lanier's, a really good shooter. I think Igor Milicic is a guy that can space the floor at the 4 spot better than anybody for Tennessee has under Rick Barnes. I do worry about their ability to create a lot at the basket, 2-point offense. when shots aren't going in, and I think that's just going to lend to some games, especially on the road in the SEC, being a little bit ugly. And certainly the SEC is so deep this year, there's not going to be many gimmies on the road, and really just in the conference play as a whole. So I think they have a good team, definitely a step back from last year. I don't think they're on the same tier as Alabama or Auburn, at least at this point in the season. But I wouldn't take anybody else in the SEC above them at this point either.
Good to know. I was kind of wondering. We're going down to see Alabama next week. We're going to the CM Classic, and I was like, I can't wait to see it. I want to see a number one team in the country. Haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, I think both those teams are really good. I think Auburn should have been number one in the country, frankly, today in the AP poll. And we got like 2 votes.
Big win over Houston.
Yeah, to go on the road and win at Houston, and their offense just looks really, really good. And defense isn't quite, a consistent Tennessee level, but it's almost always a top 20 defense nationally.
You could say they got a lot of fight in them.
Yeah, you could say they have a lot of fight in them.
Yeah.
Scrappy team.
Scrappy. Gotta love a good scrappy team.
Yeah.
Well, I have, I guess, one more non-football related question. I think this is right, but if I get it wrong, just please correct me. Talk to me a little bit about John Wilkerson and him, stepping away as the voice of the Vols.
Bob Kessling.
Bob Kessler, sorry. Yeah. I knew there was
yes.
somebody. I misread the name.
Yeah, Bob Kessling, who has been in that role since 1999, I think. Last week announced his retirement. Does obviously the football games, also the basketball games. He did the doubleheader on Saturday. He was in Louisville and then back for kickoff at a Mississippi State game. So, you always talk about, combinations of coaches that have been, you have 2 coaches for however many years, or, with your Packers, Greg, 2 quarterbacks and now 3 quarterbacks for what could be a super long amount of time. The whole history of the Vol Network, it's been two radio announcers. So obviously a guy that's well thought of. It'll be really interesting to see, who his replacement is. I know myself, a lot of other Tennessee people would love for it to be Mike Keefe. He's a UT guy, obviously does the Titan stuff now. One of the best in the biz, and a Tennessee grad, got his start in radio in Knoxville. So that's my hope. I think he's awesome. He's about the only thing good associated with the Tennessee Titans right now. So he's the one thing that gives me joy with them, and hopefully maybe it's so bad he'll be driven right to Knoxville.
That check's coming. Hopefully, I know he's loving. I'm sure the Titans' life is not bad, but I really want it because he was like the rumors were that he was in the running to get the job initially in '99.
Yes, I think he was one of the people. And he at that time was calling Tennessee baseball on the radio. I want to say I know at some point, maybe not in '99, he was working in John Ward's, on his broadcast too. Had a really popular radio show in Knoxville. So that he was one of the people that was in the running to get it then. And I guess really right around the same time as when he went to do the Titans, because he's been with the Titans since the very start, or since their move from Houston to Nashville.
Yeah. Are you in the running for this job?
I don't think I'm in the running for this job. I'll pull my name out. I'm Michael Scott. I pulled my name out of consideration.
Yes.
I'm not going to take the job. It's not my time.
Okay. I just want to clear some rumors out there. We should say there's some people on the message boards, So I may have started a rumor. You're probably in for the job. I applaud you. Just throwing that out there. So.
Oh goodness.
There you go. Great stuff, Rod. We always appreciate it, my friend. You can find him all over social media at rshump00, and obviously all of his great stuff over there at Rocky Top Insider. It's always great to hang out with you, man. I miss our weekly chats on the Word with G for sure.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Thursday afternoons feel lonely these days. I don't have anything to keep me grounded on them.
I know. I miss you. I always like keeping you grounded, hyping you up, keeping you grounded. The whole thing, we start you off real high. Yeah. And then we just break you down little by little, but always good to hear you. We love to have your perspective. It's always great to chat with you, man. Keep doing the good work, and we'll have you back on here soon.
Of course, appreciate you guys having me on.
See you,
Thanks,
Sean.
Rob.
See you, Sean.
Great stuff.
Always a pleasure. What a guy!
It's a great guy.
I got to go do my dad feeding. So.
Do your dad feeding. You can't do the mama feeding, but you can do the dad feeding.
The dad feed. The bottle's back, baby. Dad's got a good bottle feed. We're gonna hit this one out of the park.
Great to see you, Chase.
God, it's good to see you boys. I needed this today. Need the dub.
Hey, look, can we get 3 claps one time for the Bryan Lions soccer team? Yeah.
Dude, how sick was that video? My boy Charlie's the
awesome.
man.
Freaking
Yeah.
awesome.
So AAC champs, first time in like 14 years, I think. So that was a good win. It's a soccer school, to be honest. Like when soccer's good, life's good at Bryan. So that was a fun time. Couple things before I leave. One, I can't believe Colorado's this good. BYU survives again, just like the Chiefs. It was weird because we had 3 like top 10, 15 matchups in college basketball and not a soul knew about them. That's how good football is. What else did I have in my mind? I'm not very good at fantasy after week 6 ever. And
that's a lie. You won our league, one of the last couple of years. You beat Corey Gibbon.
Yeah, that's true. But I needed like that's for the people. I had to Robin Hood that situation. In my leagues that I've been in for like 15 years, I'm falling off the wagon. I don't know ball sometimes. Malcolm Harris is somehow taking over the crown in the matter of 4 or 5 weeks. I think you're batting 1,000. I don't know. I don't know if you lost the game or not.
Listen. I know you got to go. I also have to go as well because I have to be up at 4 a.m., fellas.
Woo. Yeah. If you last thing, if you've not checked it out, we are going to be helping out with the Teddy Bear Drive. Way more to come with UTC Hits 96. So go over to Hits 96, all their socials, and check out that article. We'll help out. We're going to do some cool stuff to get everybody involved to drop off a teddy bear, a brand new teddy bear. Don't be cheap, people.
No regifting.
That's right. We're not regifters. So we're better than that. We're a better podcast. We're a better brand. And if you are a certified ball knower, you listen to this pod, you don't buy that cheap crap. All right. I got to go do a feed. I love you, boys.
We love you too, man.
See you, Chase.
Good to see you, brother.
Young Malcolm,
you also.
Yeah, I was going to give you my parting wishes as well. I believed in Colorado for one, and Colorado is going to win the Big 12 championship, and you guys are going to feel my ever-loving wrath.
That's fine. We'll humble you by always mentioning that you thought Sam Bradford was Joe Burrow 2.0.
No, I will say Sam Bradford is not even. That was the stupidest take.
Stop. Oh, okay. Okay. I was like,
it's a stupid take. You guys are now feeling what I felt as a Falcons fan watching Matt Ryan and Julio Jones for the latter half of my teens. 100%. It is Julio and Matt Madover in Cincinnati, and they're going to waste them. And somebody needs to put together a package and just get them out of there. I don't know what needs to happen, but we'll talk about it. Also, what was I going to say?
Some big stuff to run
challenge here in a couple of weeks.
Whoa. Chill on my boy now. Hang on.
What is that?
He said fire Young Wei Koo.
Can't be losing the Saints
he's normally solid, man.
I don't want him to get cut, but you can't be losing the Saints like that.
Just bring in a kicker just to compete. That's it.
Put a little heat on him.
Yeah, that's it.
Just a little heat.
Job's
still his, but
yeah, just a little heat. It's fine. I mean, honestly, I would lose a game to make sure that the Saints don't get Shedeur Sanders. And that's what happened. Fair. They mathematically are probably not going to get Shedeur now.
Yeah, the rest of that division, obviously is not very good. Tampa Bay can't figure it out without their weapons. They played a couple of tough games these last couple of weeks, but yeah, they're not the same. Man. Baker's been great. Look, right. I love Baker. He's been great. We've talked about him the last couple of weeks, but it comes down to wins, and they're not winning. All the Falcons got to do is win a couple games down the stretch here, and they will be the NFC South champs.
That's it. Get to a playoff game. I'll be happy. I told you, Kirk Cousins is great. Are we at Mike's on Thursdays, fellas?
I think that might be the plan.
I think that's the plan.
Well, I will see you on Thursday. I'm gonna go make some chicken and fall asleep.
All right, brother.
You enjoy that.
Sleep well, man.
If you want to tune us up while you're doing that, like while you're making your chicken, I wouldn't be upset with you. If you want to just listen.
That is absolutely fine.
Because then you'll be cooking while we're cooking. Like,
listen, y'all boys, let them cook. I love you, fellas.
Love you too, Matt.
Love you, brother.
All right, bro. Bye, guys.
See you.
I mean, we're cooking like we're going to be cooking like prime Russ here, like 2024 Russell Wilson.
Yeah, we're gonna be cooking like LSU got cooked by Jalen Milroe on Saturday night.
Do we
And,
have to start there, huh?
Oh, we got to, man. We got to, because me and you both hopped on the Tiger train. You know, Garrett was right there with us. They were bringing a live tiger to the sidelines.
But they
There's
didn't
a
do
live
it.
tiger. Oh, they brought him out.
I didn't think they
They
did
brought
it.
him out. They did, but he was wearing a script A and the number 4 on his jersey as he ran all up and down the field.
I see
Man.
what you did there.
Brother, I don't know why Alabama has ever at any point this year not looked at Jalen and been like, do that. Like, what happened Saturday night? Do that. Just all the time.
I wish it were that easy sometimes. Like, hey, to Georgia, can we do what we did against Texas? Like, just do that.
Yeah, just do that. Just do that.
You can't always do that.
But I feel like it's a little more replicable with Jalen. Like, to kind of lean into your identity as an Alabama and be like, hey, this is what we are this year. If we throw this at every team and they just stop us, that's just what we are this year. We are Jalen running the ball and Jalen being the best athlete on the field. And my God, was he, man. 185 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. Dude, absolutely just put LSU to sleep, man. I mean, he put LSU. He had some help. Don't get me wrong. He had some help. Pivotal penalties for LSU in this game, dude. I mean, you had, and not even just like, you actually ended up having less penalty yardage than Bama, but your penalties and the time that they got thrown and the time that they came out, just crucial. Like, just drive killers, man. And then there's one thing I wanted to point out specifically, because I tweeted about this today, and I think it was the play where LSU lost the game. So LSU, they stopped Bama on 4th down, turned the ball over on downs. There's 3 minutes and 37 seconds left in the first half, and LSU gets the ball to start the second half. Okay, so this is what they call the inner 8, the last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half. You got to win the middle 8. Like, that is one of the most crucial times in a game, and LSU just totally botched it. Here's how it happened. So they get that stop, 3:37. They run one play. I tweeted this because I zoomed in on the video, and I watched the Skycam replay back like 3 or 4 times, and I can't find an answer, because it's either the center took a play off, or he just had the worst possible miss that he could have had all night. So Jahad Campbell blitzes on a delayed rush. The center looks left, looks at his guard. Guard's got the D end on his outside shoulder. So that center, there's nothing he can do with that guard. That guy's going to run into the guard, into the tackle. The center looks to his left at the D end, looks back. At this point, Jahad Campbell's running at him. Throws his arm out like this, looks back left.
Oh, no.
What are we looking at? And then by the time he realizes anything that's happened, excuse me, trying not to get animated. Voice is going to suffer. By the time he realizes what's happened, Jahad Campbell is on his hip, running past him, straight to Garrett Nussmeier.
Terrible.
And what does he do? Garrett rolls out, fumbles the ball, Bama recovers. They run 3 plays, and it's a 14-point swing. And instead of it being potentially 13-14 at the half, or maybe even 12, maybe even 14-14, because you could go for 2, but optimistically, like worst case scenario, you're 9-14, and you get the ball at the half. You're very much in the game. It's now 21-6 going into the half, and then you come right out. I mean, you could not have ended the half any worse than that fumble and giving the ball to Bama and letting them score. Then you come out in the second half, you march all the way down the field. I think it was 14 plays, picking the end zone. I mean, you lost you lost the middle 8 and it cost you the game for LSU. And I just, as an LSU fan, that's got to be unbelievably frustrating, because this game really came down to what is 2 plays. It came down to 2 plays for LSU, and it was that missed block by the center on Jahad Campbell, and what I'm assuming is a missed block. I don't know the slide protection. I don't know what the center was told to do. I don't, throwing all that out there, I don't know what his assignment was for the play technically. So take all that with a grain of salt. But watching it on the TV copy, it just looks like an egregious miss. And then Garrett Nussmeier's, he's just throwing picks, man. And he throws a pick on the goal line. And those 2 plays, it felt like those 2 plays essentially lost LSU the game, because Bama was up 21-6. They go down and score. It's 28-6. And it's just not, you could have just packed it up. Could have packed it up and shipped it home. Bama's now 6-1 at LSU since 2012. They have just owned Tiger Stadium. So it's
yeah, they certainly do. And if you told me going into this game that Ryan Williams was only going to have 2 catches for 29 yards, I probably would have said, yeah, LSU probably clapped them cheeks and did what we thought that they were going to do. And it really just didn't happen that way.
No, because Jalen Milroe had 185 on the ground. I don't understand why you don't do this more often if you're Alabama, because you saw it against Georgia that he was able to, be effective running the football. Mm-hmm. And so, he is the best athlete on the field. And that is truly what his strength is. When you're trying, it almost feels like Kevin DeBoer is like, look, I'm more of the offensive guy. I want to throw the football around. I want to be a little bit more complex with how we throw the football. But that's not Jalen Milroe's game. That's not where he's at his best. And we've seen it, especially in that Tennessee game when we were there. You're trying to, squeeze that round, that square peg into a round hole, and he just can't always hit the guys. And I understand you have Ryan Williams, and you want to be able to utilize how good he is from an offensive perspective and a wide receiver. But again, you got to do what the strength of your quarterback is. And they did that to perfection on Saturday. And it was an absolute cheek clapping the other way. And the 3 of us looked incredibly stupid. I'm sitting there watching the game with a couple of friends after recruiting on Saturday at a bar. And I told them I picked LSU, and it was pretty darn embarrassing. Yep. It was over. It was over at halftime. That touchdown, you want to talk about another team that's got a Bama problem?
Come on.
LSU's got an Alabama problem.
Yeah. Well, they beat them recently in 2022.
It took, they did. With a 2-point conversion, give them that. It's Tiger Stadium at night, like Brian Kelly's first year. Other than that, it took Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson to beat them in 2019. And then I think before that, Bama had won 6 in a row versus LSU. So it's tough, because it's got to be tough also if you're a Bama fan, because looking at what they did and seeing what they can be on offense, specifically this game and the Georgia game, and it's like, how have we lost 2 games this season? But you have. It's just the inconsistencies, and I don't know if it's play calling or if it is Milroe. Maybe if that bye week really did a lot for him. And did a lot for the staff in terms of them being like, this is what we are, and this is what we want to do. That maybe they had some revelation, but it's got to be frustrating if you're a Bama fan. But at least with the 12-team playoff, you're very much in it. So from here on forward, you can lean into that.
Yeah, I feel like that Vanderbilt game was kind of an anomaly where, look, Vanderbilt, they played their absolute best game. They possessed the football for a very long time. They hit some big 4th down throws by Pavia and things like that. So that was a little bit of an anomaly. And then the Tennessee game, like we were talking about, I just don't think it was the greatest called game, I guess. Because, look, Ryan Williams was able to get open. Again, it was just Jalen Milroe who couldn't hit him with the football, couldn't really hit the broadside of a barn. But neither could Nico at times until Nico finally got one. and it was able to crack things open for Tennessee. But yeah, if Alabama continues to play like this, and I know Garrett had mentioned, his biggest thing where the playoff committee got it wrong in terms of Alabama being in the college football playoff. That wasn't the case. Alabama proved that they deserve to be in the college football playoff, especially if they win out the rest of this season and get in with 2 losses, they will get in.
For sure. Definitely. Because that team is their ceiling is incredible, but their floor is also very low. So big variance in the Tide this year. So
yeah.
But I guess, since we've already creeped over an hour here, is there anything else you want to hit college football before we move on to the NFL? Because I got some.
I was just going to say a little scary, just to go over our core 4 matchups. A little scary. Early Texas Tech was out on Colorado, but then they just stormed back and they found a way to get a good win. And what is this thing? And you know better than I do, but I saw something about tortillas being tossed on the field in Texas Tech in that Colorado game. What the hell was that?
I don't actually know. I saw that video, and I don't know if that's a consistent thing that Texas Tech does. That's the first I've seen of it. I know. I can't remember. I think it was Shador. I don't think it was Travis. I think it was Shador that signed a tortilla and threw it back at somebody or threw it back to somebody. So I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that was like a one-off thing that they did for that game, or if that's something they do, like once a year. If it's something they do, I don't know. I don't actually know the whole story behind the throw burrito at Texas Tech there.
Yeah, that was very strange. But good win for Colorado. The only game I literally got right this weekend, and I didn't watch any of the South Carolina at Vanderbilt. Like I said, I was recruiting, but an absolute stinker for Vandy, especially with the Vandy King from SEC Shorts in attendance. Very disappointing.
Oh, I know, man. Standing in the end zone, waiting on touchdowns, and then, South Carolina's defense. Kyle Kennard is a freak. Dylan Stewart's a freak. It's just that defense is nasty. And Lenore Sellers seems to be getting better with every game, which has got to feel good if you're a Gamecock fan. Nicholas Harbor, early on in the season, we kind of talked about like where he is, what he's doing, and I said, I don't really think he's good at football. He's getting there. He's definitely turning it around. He showed up in that game a few times, and they look like they might have something with him. In terms of a big play guy. So that's a good sign, because you never like to see a 5-star come in and kind of be, I guess, a ghost. So yeah, good win for South Carolina and Beamer Ball to round out our core 4. And then outside of our core 4, Miami got, man.
I know.
It finally happened. You play. It feels like everybody. I don't want to steal the analogy that everybody else has been using, but there's no other better way to say it. You play with fire, you're going to get burned. You flirted around with Cal. You flirted around with Virginia Tech. You luckily Superman Cam Ward bailed you out, and you ended up winning both those games. There's one other game where they did that, and it's left my mind now. But eventually you run up on a team like Georgia Tech, and they're just scrappy, and they can keep the ball, and they got you, man. And ultimately, I think Miami, if I'm a Miami fan, I would rather have lost this game than lost like the ACC title.
Yeah.
Because you'll glean a lot from it. And I think ultimately they have to. Like, you can't play with your food anymore. You cannot. You have no more room for error as the Miami Hurricanes, especially not in the regular season. Like you damn near have to win the ACC title, but you definitely cannot lose another regular season game. And SMU is going to come to play, man. Like, they're not going to screw around. They can score points. So
they're better than Georgia Tech. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they are. They are definitely a better team. So I think ultimately it's not fun to be like, yeah, we'll learn from this loss, and it's good that we lost. But I think ultimately for Miami, it is better that they lost now, and it'll make them better going into the playoffs. So Cam Ward was unable to bail out the Hurricanes again.
And he had a good game, though. I mean, he played well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, from a
Yeah,
statistics standpoint.
Yeah, he just, at the end held on to the ball a little too long. Pass rush gets to him and he fumbles, and it happens, man. You as good as he is, he can't do it alone. So yeah.
Hey, a couple other things that stood out to me. Indiana surviving Michigan, which I was a little surprised about, especially at home, and then BYU needing some sort of miracle to pull that one out and stay undefeated against Utah.
Yeah, shout out to the Utah AD for finally saying what every other AD has probably wanted to say but never did. I don't know how big the fine's going to be, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be worth it. So shout out to the Utah AD for basically telling the refs they stole a game from them. And I haven't seen the play, but if he's bold enough to come out and say that, then he probably has there's probably some kind of warranted reason for that, because I don't feel like ADs just go out and say that when a game's called poorly.
Yeah.
But especially in the state that college football officiating has been in this year, I'm glad somebody said it. I'm glad somebody in a position of relevancy said it, instead of just one of us talking heads on the internet who doesn't really have to face any consequences from telling a conference how bad their officiating crew is. So yeah, I'm a fan of that. I hope it doesn't cost him his job and it's just a fine, but hopefully it'll create some kind of initiative for change, and initiative for a raising of the bar and a hiring of the standard of college football officiating, because the sport's too good. The sport makes too much money. It's worth too much for this to happen week in and week out.
Yeah.
As far as poor officiating goes. So
yeah. Any thoughts on Indiana?
I'm not really concerned that the game was close, because I think it was one of those things where it was like, it's kind of a gritty win for Indiana, and it kind of shows you that they can win. They can win a kind of a dogfight like this, because Michigan, historically is a better program and a better team. But I think it's a good win for Indiana. I believe they're going into the bye week now before they play Ohio State, which it looks like. Yeah. So Indiana's moving into their bye week, 10-0. And next week at noon, man, they take on the Ohio State Buckeyes in what's going to be an incredible, incredible game. So yeah, gritty win for Indiana. Happy to be 10-0.
Yeah, happy to be 10-0. And look, sometimes you're going to have those games, and that's just kind of what it is. And probably a good win to win that way, to kind of prove to yourself, all right, we can win a tough game against a big opponent. I know Michigan's not as good as they normally are, but still a nice win. Regardless, we'll get the college football playoff rankings tomorrow on Tuesday. So that's going to be interesting to see how everybody kind of shifts and moves around. And I was kind of looking over the two polls earlier tonight, and I was talking to Jamarius about them. And I really like the coaches poll better than the AP top 25, if I'm being very honest.
Dude, the AP top 25 is
a joke.
It's a joke, man. It's just like it carries too many teams have too much water carried for them throughout the season based on their preseason rankings. Like Missouri should not be ranked. I know they just beat Oklahoma, but I mean they've got blanked by Alabama. They got they've splattered on the windshield of Texas A&M.
Yeah.
What are we doing here, guys? Like the AP poll is more like oh hey, this is the AP poll.
Yeah. But it's really the one that it's the one that you always see though. Like that's the one, obviously, other than the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
The AP is like the go-to rankings, more so than the coaches poll.
Yep.
But
and go ahead. it's one of those things that it's fun to, for me, it's fun to look at. It's like preseason rankings. Like preseason rankings are fun to look at. They're fun to talk about, but I don't take them a whole lot. Don't take them very serious. But I'm kind of the same way with the AP. I'm like, this is the AP poll. I pay a little bit more attention to the college football playoff rankings because ultimately those are the ones that end up mattering. But it's just kind of like, it's more fun to look at the AP and pick it apart than it is to look at it and be like, yeah, this team, that's a good ranking. That's a good ranking for this team and a good ranking for that team. It's more fun to just look at and be like, what are you doing? Why is so-and-so here? What are we doing? So,
yeah, for sure. Also, for those that are hanging out with us here tonight, we got a good amount of watchers tonight, so we appreciate y'all watching. If y'all want to chime in, this is the first show, Joseph. I think we haven't really had anybody chime in.
Yeah, normally we have some people that hop in the chat and at least say what's up or ask a few questions, and
yeah,
we're always down to answer.
TriStar, we got people in there. So if you are watching and you want to throw your 2 cents in, please feel free. It adds to the show. We'll react to whatever craziness that you throw in the chat. You can ask us anything, whether it's football related, sports related, or if you just have a fun question you want to throw at us, please do it. It makes the show that much more fun when we get some randomness, we get some interaction from you in the chat, in the comments, whatever it may be. It'll show up for us. We'll see it, but we'll throw it up on the screen for you as well. Anything else you want to touch on college football wise before we zoom over to the NFL?
I think Oregon rolled against Maryland again. Boise State gutted out a win against Nevada. Iowa State lost again to Kansas. So, with Colorado's win, that just further opens the door for Colorado to get into the Big 12 title. And if they're, working their way into the Big 12 title, then they're working their way into a playoff spot. So something to watch for. Colorado's got a big game coming up against Utah this weekend. Then they travel to play that same Kansas team that just took out Iowa State. They're currently sitting they're sitting in solid second place in the conference with a 5-1 record. Everyone else is 4-2 or worse, besides BYU, who is 6-0. So we very well could be looking at a Colorado BYU Big 12 title game, which would be incredible. I'm all for it. So
yeah, that would be fun, man. It's as much as we like to shit on Miggie a little bit about Colorado and all the confidence that he's had in it. If we're being honest, Colorado being good is good for college football.
100%. A team that was 1-11 2 years ago, and they make this splashy hire in Deion Sanders, and Deion brings over Travis and Shador from Jackson State and a couple other players, and they do this unprecedented transfer portal turnover where they bring in like 80 players or something ridiculous like that, and then it doesn't turn out well, but they find some things to build on, and then this year they're just legitimately a good team. It's a great story, man, and it's Deion's done a hell of a job with Colorado. So I'm hoping that they can win out, or at least win out the games they need to make it in the Big 12 title, because I think BYU Colorado would be an absolutely incredible game. As opposed to say Iowa State was to sneak back in there. Give me BYU Colorado. That would be incredible.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, when it comes to the National Football League, man, it's been bad for a couple of teams that are supposed to be really good. We're talking about the Jets supposed to be really good. They can't find a way to win. They get, as you sort of mentioned earlier, splattered by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Ugh. 31-6, just absolutely terrible.
Just non-competitive. The game was non-competitive.
The same thing with the Eagles and the Cowboys. I know the Cowboys are the Cowboys, backup quarterback, whatever, but which one of those two teams do you feel like is more disappointing right now?
The Cowboys, because the Jets, while it is fun to be like, You brought in Aaron Rodgers. The Jets have been bad. They have been historically bad. Like they brought in and I love Aaron, and he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, without a shadow of a doubt. But you brought in a quarterback who's, kind of finishing out his tenure, and he wants to see if he can inject some life in a fan base. And it's just, it's just same old Jets. But you got some big names. But the Cowboys, man, I mean, they last year were 12-5, made the playoffs, got destroyed. Come back this year, Dak gets the big contract. CD's back. You got Micah Parsons. What was it? Is it Mike Fisher's the DC they hired?
Mike Zimmer.
Mike Zimmer. Sorry, Mike Zimmer.
Yep.
So you bring in a new DC, and then you're 3-6. You're 0-4 at home. It's got to be more disappointing, I think, for the Cowboys. And now Dak's hurt. He's probably going to be out for the season. Micah Parsons is back, but I mean, what is he really playing for other than to just play and potential incentives and bonuses? So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Cowboys.
To me, I think it's unequivocally the Jets, just because I spent a lot of time around that fan base. It was the first NFL game that I ever went to was a Jets game. I have a lot of friends that are Jets fans, and I know how incredibly hyped they were to get my former quarterback in the great Aaron Rodgers. And then they go and they trade for a guy like Devontae Adams. They've got a legitimate running back in Breece Hall. They've got a legitimate number one in Garrett Wilson. They've also got what's supposed to be a really good defense with Hassan Reddick back in the mix and Sauce Gardner and Williams up the middle. Like, they've got some real incredible pieces. I know Aaron hasn't looked great, but to me, it really comes down to the inability for them to not secure the line up front with him. Like, that was the one thing that allowed Tom Brady to be as successful as he was, because they had an incredible amount of weapons. They brought in his former buddy in Rob Gronkowski, and it worked out wonderfully. To me, the biggest difference was, there's two differences. One was the offensive line. Tom knew the offensive line was really good there in Tampa Bay, and they had some playmakers that he could work with and a good defense, good young defense, but also the coaching staff. And that's another thing as well. I don't wholeheartedly believe that it's Robert Saleh or the new guy whose name is escaping me right now, Oltrich or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I can't think of the interim head coach's name.
Yeah, it's just all bad. Aaron doesn't look the same. The offensive line is not affording him time. There's just a lot of bad things there. And it's just incredible to me that you look back at the last 3 years. I saw something on Instagram about this, Jay. And in 2022, they were 6-4 at this time. You look back to just last year with Zach Wilson, 4-6. And now you go to Aaron Rodgers in 2024 and there's 3-7. Like, make it make sense, dude. I don't get it. Like, they should not be this bad.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's road struggles. They're 1-5 on the road. I mean, that's just tough. It's tough to win I know it's tough to win on the road, but like you said, you bring in these pieces for a reason. You do sign Devontae Adams, and he's a great compliment to Garrett Wilson. It's just never. And I guess the more frustrating part is that you're not getting blown out either. Minus the Steelers game. That was what it was. But you lost by 3 to the Pats. You lost by 3 to the Bills. You lost by 6 to the Vikings. You lost by 1 to the Broncos. I mean, first game of the season, you're playing the Niners. That's a little tough because the Niners are at full strength, and we know what that roster looks like when everybody's healthy. So, I mean, outside of this Cardinals game and the Steelers game, you could be, 7-3 if a couple of bounces went your way. So that's also got to be really frustrating. You are still second in the division, but the rest of the division is New England and Miami. So that's not exactly something to flex about, and then the Bills look great. So tough times for the Jets right now, man. But I mean, I guess it's always been tough times for the Jets. So I guess the takeaway would be same old instead of the Jets are bad this year. So looks like we lost our boy Greg there. That's all right. While we're waiting on him to get back, I'll move on to something else that I wanted to talk about as far as the NFL goes. Man, last night's game was absolutely incredible. The Lions seemingly throwing out every reason they should lose. Jared Goff plays the worst game he's played all season, throws more picks in a game than he has the first 9 games, and they somehow find a way to battle back and beat the Texans. Jake Bates hits a clutch field goal as time goes out. The Lions are real, guys. And I know that's kind of obvious to say, but the Lions are a legitimate team. And I'm hoping that they can carry this momentum to a Super Bowl and hopefully a Super Bowl victory, not just make it to the game. But looking at the rest of their schedule coming up, it seems to get a little bit easier the next 3 weeks. I know no games in the NFL are easy, but it seems to get a little bit easier. They got the Jags at home. They're at the Colts, and then they're playing the Bears at home before they get into a tough 2-game stretch against the Packers and the Bills. So all signs are looking like the Lions could be the top dog in the NFC, which has got to feel good if you're a Lions fan. Got to feel good if you're a Lions fan. So let me check on Greg real quick. He said his internet crapped out. Okay, he's trying to get back. So I'll hold the fort down. Okay. So we touched on the Lions and the Texans, which I thought was probably the game of the weekend. Well, potentially. It was potentially the game of the weekend, chat. But don't forget, Primetime Russ came back. Primetime Russ showed up in a big way. The Steelers go in to D.C. and beat the Commanders. Russ 14 for 28, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns. As a Georgia fan, it's personally really, really good to see somebody to see GP getting the attention he should get. He's such a dynamic receiver. 5 receptions, 91 yards. I mean, the Steelers look like they are an actual force this year because the offense seems to be clicking. We know what the defense is with TJ Watt, and TJ Watt's an absolute freak. So the Steelers look like they could be well on their way to not just making the playoffs, but having a chance to make a little bit of a playoff run. And then, I know they won the game, or they ended up losing, but we can't discount the Commanders, man. And Jaden Daniels and what he's done this year. And in this game, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but he was sacked 3 times. 17 for 34 is not terrible. It's not great, but at least he didn't turn the ball over. It's probably the best defense that Jaden has played this year. I think, well, he has played the Ravens. The Ravens are also pretty nasty on defense, but got to feel good if you're a Commanders fan. You and Philly easily fighting for the top of the division as Dallas has kind of went into rebuilding mode to finish out the rest of the year, and then the Giants are just a dumpster fire. Daniel Jones is, I don't know why they gave him that massive contract, but they go over to Munich and they get beat in Germany by the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young. I don't know what the future holds for the Giants as far as quarterback goes. I'm not sure actually off the top of my head who their backup quarterback is. But, I mean, Daniel Jones, 22 of 37, 190 yards, 2 picks. It's not looking good for the Giants. I do feel for Tyrone Tracy because that fumble, man, and seeing his face and the emotion, like you could tell that he really took that he really took that loss to heart because he felt like with that crucial fumble at the timing, you see him on the sidelines in tears. So I feel bad for Tyron Tracy. But I mean, the Giants 2-8 right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. You got the Bucks coming up. You play the Cowboys. You play the Saints, and then you finish with 4 just tough games against the Ravens, at the Falcons. You get the Colts at home. At least you're at home, and then you finish out with at the Eagles. So, not good things on the horizon for Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll, and the Giants. That's tough. As we get back to the rest of the slate here from the NFL. Any more games we want to touch on? Briefly before Greg, his internet crapped out on him, he was talking about teams that have been a little bit of a disappointment. And he mentioned the Cowboys and the Jets specifically. But one team I kind of want to talk on that I think has been a disappointment is the Bengals. And I know their record is, they're 4-6, and it's like, well, that's not unrecoverable because you got the Chargers coming up. You can very much win that game. You got the Steelers at home. I want to say you can win that game, maybe, but at least it is at home. Then you've got the Cowboys and the Titans, 2 games you can win. But it's just, Joe Burrow's playing some of the best ball he's played in these past few games, and you lose to the Eagles, you lose to the Ravens, you lose to the Ravens twice. This time after Joe throws for 5 touchdowns, you get the horrible, what probably should have been a holding call on the 2-point conversion. But, if you give the refs a chance, they're going to screw you out of a game. The Bengals have been kind of a disappointment after starting the season 0-3, really starting the season 1-4. It's just tough, man. That's a team, but I mean, they still have a chance to bounce back. But that is one team that, I think has been a bit of a disappointment. As far as anything else, the Chiefs managed to escape again, guys. I don't know how they keep doing this. I don't know what voodoo lady they brought in and had her do some magical chant on the 50-yard line that was like, hey, you're just going to somehow find a way to win games. But they did it. They blocked the Broncos' game-winning field goal, and they have managed to stay undefeated. Chiefs sitting at 9-0. Schedule coming up. I don't know if they'll lose it. I mean, their best chance to lose a game is this next game. So they play at the Bills on was that Monday? On Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. They play at the Bills. If they manage to win that game, I mean, I don't see the Chiefs losing again, having another chance realistically to lose until the 21st of December. So let's check their schedule real quick. After the Bills game this weekend, say they win that, they're 10-0. They're at the Panthers, Raiders at home. Oh, he's back.
Hey.
What's up, Chief?
We got
the good old router reset, baby.
I tried resetting the computer thinking maybe that would work, but that was a stupid move. Just got to reset the router always.
Yep. When in doubt, man, just turn it off and turn it back on.
Yeah. Classic.
That's classic IT, baby.
All right, tell me where you're at, what you've been talking about, what's going on.
So I kind of bounced around a little bit, covered a couple of the games. We were talking about disappointing teams. You brought up the Cowboys and the. Well, I was getting there. That was the game I was about to bring up, but I touched on the Bengals briefly, because I just they started the season 1-4. They've lost to the Ravens twice. Joe Burrow's playing incredible football. I mean, he goes 34 of 56, 428 yards and 4 touchdowns, and you still lose. They have a chance to turn it around. I did talk about their upcoming schedule a little bit. But that's got to be disappointing, man, to be for Burrow to be playing as well as he is, and then you still can't beat the Ravens. All credit to the Ravens. They are an incredible team, and what they've been able to accomplish between Lamar and Derrick Henry should definitely not be overshadowed. But I think the Bengals are up there for disappointing team, especially because they were a lot more sure thing, or they
Mhm.
felt like they were a lot more sure thing coming in than like say the Bears. Um, but I guess if you want to touch on the Bears being disappointing,
Yeah, it would bring me no better joy than to talk about the Bears' disappointment. You were talking about the Jets, sort of same old Jets.
mm-hmm.
It's sort of like same old Bears, where they draft this guy who you've talked about, who you feel like is a generational type of talent at quarterback. And the offensive line has just been incredibly beat up. They haven't been able to give him time. I know DJ Moore's throwing fits out there. DeAndre Swift wasn't very good beginning of the year. Keenan Allen's been in and out of the lineup. Rome Odunze hasn't been able to make as much of an impact as a high drafted wide receiver as they were hoping he would. Cole Kmet's been in and out. Sometimes there's an APB. Sometimes he shows up. Who knows? And the defense, while it's been good, the offense just hasn't been able to get their shit together enough to be able to make any sort of run. And I think we're going to look back on this Bear season, and it's going to be that failed Hail Mary. Well, not failed Hail Mary on their end, to failure to defend the Hail.
The successful Hail Mary by the Commanders.
Yes, the failed attempt to defend the Hail Mary, and you got your boy, whatever his name was, hyping up the crowd, talking shit before.
Oh, Tyreek Stevenson.
Yeah, and that's just a bad look, and that's ultimately going to be at Matt Eberflus's demise, because it looked like you win that game, you probably play better in this next subsequent game, and the season looks a whole lot different.
Yeah, you're 6-4 at that point.
Yeah,
like instead of 4-5, you're 6-4
in a really good division.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, and it doesn't help that number one, you just lost to the Patriots, who was the other quarterback drafted in this last class, and then you got to look over at you had the Commanders beat, who was the second quarterback drafted in this class.
Yep.
And then now you look over at the Commanders, and they're competitive. Like even when they're losing, they lost. Oh, I did touch on Primetime Russ seems to be back. He has ignited this Steelers offense, and for me personally, he has what feels like revitalized GP's career in Pittsburgh, and I'm all for that, because that man's finally getting the respect he deserves as a wide receiver, because he finally has somebody that can get him the ball. So it's got to be, it's got to be frustrating all around, because the Commanders, you and the Commanders and the Patriots were all in very similar spots this year in terms of how you were going in and preseason expectations. And yeah, your pieces were different, but in terms of like you're drafting a new quarterback and you're kind of starting over, and you lose to the Patriots and you lose to the Commanders, and you were supposed to have the best quarterback in the draft, and you've been beaten by the other two. So I don't think it's as much of an indication on Caleb as it is just the Bears as a franchise.
Yeah, and look, I'm not ready to write Caleb Williams off with one subpar type of year. I know we talked about all the weapons that he has and everything like that going into this year, but yeah, it's I'm not ready to write him off. We've seen way too many good quarterbacks have subpar first years and then been able to turn it around. So yeah, I'm sure with his talent, he'll be okay.
And it was something that, in the preseason and in the early season, we all kind of, at least from what I can remember, I don't think anybody pushed back on it. We all thought Caleb could be good, but Eberflus isn't the guy. And it kind of seems like that's what we're seeing, is that Caleb has potential. The talent's there, but for some reason, this coaching staff just can't piece it together. So,
yep,
it's tough.
That's pretty much the Bears in a nutshell. And again, the Vikings find a way to win a weird game in which they probably should have lost, with all the interceptions being thrown by Sam Darnold. And then you look at the Lions, where you have Jared Goff throwing 5 picks and then still finding a way to beat a good football team on the road. Yeah.
And dude, I mean, that was the game I jumped to immediately after you disconnected. And I was like, for me, it lived up to you know what I think many people would probably pegged as the game of the weekend. I know a lot of people were low key on the Steelers Commanders, which you could, if you came to me and said, hey, you know, Steelers Commanders was my game of the week, I'm not going to push back on that because that was very entertaining. But the Lions, man, just and Dan Campbell said it in his post game, that was resiliency. And that if you can come back and win a game like that, where you look like that, you are a championship caliber team. Like that proved to me that the Lions are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Not saying that's a shocker. No, but it's not like, not trying to say anybody didn't see that coming, but if you see anything from teams that, you know, have these preseason aspirations that kind of confirms it for you mid-season, a game like that is one of them, where you somehow find a way to overcome your quarterback throwing more interceptions in 60 minutes than he has in 8 weeks. That speaks a lot about you, your football team, the culture that coaching staff has instilled, and the mission that they are on as a team is just is legitimate, man.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know if you saw this. I didn't really got a chance to sit here and read this, but I was just kind of looking at NFL headlines. I don't know if you saw this, but the Seahawks waived their leading tackler in Tyrell Dodson.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
They were on a bye week.
Yeah. The move came after the Seahawks returned from their bye on the heels of 5 losses in the past 6 games that dropped them to 5-4 in the last place in the NFC West. Mike McDonald said last week that everything would be on the table as the team self-scouted over the bye. That included another change at inside linebacker. The Seahawks previously swapped out Jerome Baker and Ernest Jones IV. Baker had been playing weak side linebacker, but Dotson moved there in the past 2 games, allowed Jones to slide in the middle linebacker spot, blah, blah, blah. Dotson had started all 9 games for the Seahawks after signing in March. They said, we really appreciate T-Dot. He's worked extremely hard, rehab through the offseason here. I think it was an opportunity for us when we kind of took a step back and realized where we were at. It was the best thing for us to move forward that way, give the other guys in the room an opportunity to step up. So maybe that's a team saying, look, we really don't know if we're going to wholeheartedly expect to compete this year.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we cut this guy? Maybe he'll, jump on with a good team where he has a chance to win. You could look at it that way. You could also look at it as, yeah, maybe this guy was the leading tackler. And look, I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about Tyrell Dodson, if I'm being very honest with you. But another reason for this move could be, yeah, he's been a great tackler. Shit in coverage. Like, he just sucks in coverage. So we want somebody who's a little bit more well-rounded, a little more versatile, get the younger guys in there and whatnot. But it's interesting when you see the guy that's a leading tackler on your team gets waived in the middle of a season where you're not wholeheartedly out of it. Like I said, they're 4-5.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, and I know Miggie's brought this up on a couple of shows where he can never really get a feel for the Seahawks, and I'm right there with him. Like, I don't know if this team's good or not, but to waive Dotson like that, it could be somebody that maybe doesn't necessarily fit into the role or the scheme that they want to play, and they feel like the guys behind him, if they, move away, like, could be one of those things where they felt like they had to keep him on the field because he was, he is the leading tackler. But if they do that, then they can't quite run the exact scheme, or they can't have him in the quite right role that they want to play. I don't know who's behind him, or as far as body type or size or style or what they're going for, but it could be a scenario where they wanted to shake up, what that position does and what his position does specifically. And he just wouldn't have been able to fill that role.
Yeah. And, obviously the trade deadline for the NFL was last week. So maybe they were trying to find a trade partner. I would assume they were probably trying to find a trade partner for him. Couldn't do it. So it's like, well, at this point, we'll just waive him. I was reading here, he's now subject to waivers. Any other player released after last week's trade deadline if he's claimed, the Seahawks will be off the hook for $1 million that remain on his $2.25 million base salary. Any team that claims Dotson would take on $240,000 that remain on the a little over $500,000 he can make in per game roster bonuses, as well as the $1.25 million he can make in incentives.
Seems like he might be a guy that gets picked up by one of these teams that's probably more on the contender side and just provides some like quality depth as one of these like better teams goes to make like a playoff push. But we'll see. Hopefully he'll find a team. Hopefully he'll get picked up before the end of the season. I'd imagine if he's leading a defense in tackles, he's probably worth signing and paying out the rest. Paying out the rest of the contract.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's not big money. He's not a big name.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, just something interesting. I thought I would kind of throw at you that kind of came across my purview.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Man, what? Well, I guess you kind of said it with Younghoe Koo and the Falcons. I was going to say what happened, but he missed 3 kicks, 9 points.
Yeah, one got
blocked.
One got blocked, so I'm just being a little facetious when it comes to him being cut. Like, look, like you said.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's a good kicker, and shame on AJ Terrell for letting a washed-up Marquez Valdes-Scantling cook you in this game. I wish Miggie was here to take this heat and this smoke because, Jamarius is just saying, who dat, baby? Yeah, MVS. Darren Rizzi talking about he's taking a shit, a big old crap in the coach's room before the game, clogs the toilet, thinks this is going to be literally a crappy day. And it comes out, and it's an awesome day for the Saints. They get back on the winning ways, on the winning train, as they snap a 7-game losing streak. And without their top 2 wide receivers, Alvin Kamara continues to play well. Derek Carr's back, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, one of my old buddies, out there with the Green Bay Packers.
3 receptions, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Man,
stupid. I will say I'll pat myself a little bit on the back. I was in not in a good way wide receiver wise. I'm on one of my fantasy teams, and I picked up Ricky Pearsall thinking they're down a couple guys. Terrible defense with the Bucs, and he got his first touchdown just like 70 some odd days from getting shot in the chest. I mean,
dude, I know. What a warrior,
insane
man.
story.
Good for Ricky, bro. Good for Ricky. Like,
I don't know how great he's going to be in this league, but yeah,
he's got some talent.
I
mean, I don't think he's a wide receiver 1, but he seems like he could be a pretty solid rotational guy. But we'll see. I mean, if anybody's gonna find a way to use him, it's gonna be Kyle Shanahan. So they'll find some way to get production out of him, get him the ball. He'll be all right.
Man, some way, somehow, they sure shit will. And it was kind of funny that you had Deebo Samuel after Jake Moody missed his second kick, yelling at him, yelling at the long snapper. Like, it was funny seeing those guys kind of go back and forth because you don't normally see those skill position guys going at it with the special teamers.
No, it's not normally. You don't see them normally coming after dudes like that. But I guess it's been a frustrating year for the 49ers. Yeah, they're still above 500, but 5-4 is not exactly where they wanted to be. So it could be a little bit of emotions boiling over. But Moody ends up winning it for him with a 44-yard field goal. So that's you gotta show him some love after something like that.
Yeah, I hope afterwards they squashed it and it was okay. But Christian McCaffrey came back in that game, and I know fantasy managers were ecstatic to have CMC back, and it just really shows you from sort of the timeshare that it's really not a dual back system. Like, it's kind of all or nothing. Like, if CMC's healthy, he's going to be the guy. If he's not, Jordan Mason will be the guy. I know Guerrero got a little bit of run there, but when it was kind of more when Mason got hurt, and Yeah, CMC seems to really be the guy. And you mentioned the Commanders in Pittsburgh earlier, and that was a really fun game the way that we thought it would be, kind of like the Lions and the Texans were. And I know that they were disappointed. There's a lot of disappointment that Jaden Daniels lost, but it still continued to show me that he's legitimate and he's really, really good. And, I know Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson Jr. wasn't in. Austin Eckler had, 2-3 touchdowns. He was good. I wasn't sure how they were going to be able to handle the pass rush, handle, the run, if they were going to be able to run the football against them. But they proved me wrong. They were able to do a little something and make some hay with that. And you mentioned George Pickens. And I'll be honest, I didn't think Russell Wilson was going to come back and be any sort of good. I thought he'd be very mediocre. And, maybe we'll get a chance to see Justin Fields again. But I got to give a lot of credit to Russ. He's making good plays and he's making good throws. The deep ball still there. That throw to Mike Williams was awesome. And I saw Mike Williams trolling Aaron Rodgers a little bit on when he called him out after that one of those games he lost, like his last game as a Jet. He's like, well, I was supposed to run down the red line. He wasn't there. And I saw him retweet it and something that's like that and said #redline.
Yeah.
Found a way to make that play. And Najee Harris has been running the ball hard as well. He's been really, really good.
Yeah, and him and Jalen Warren are a nice little 1-2 punch. They feel like like an Algier Robinson type combo to me. So good for the Steelers all around, man. They're 7-2. Russ seems to be in a much better situation, and seems like he wasn't going to let Sean Payton have the last word on his career. So Steelers can make some noise, man. Yeah,
it's really interesting sometimes to see, how different environments affect different guys, positively and negatively, whether it's like they're in a positive environment to start with, and then they go to a negative environment, how it affects them. And then maybe when they get an opportunity to go back to a positive environment, like a Russell Wilson, it's just crazy, and I've heard from former NFL players that there are better cultures than others around the National Football League. I once heard from this guy who was like a practice squad guy. I think he played at University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And he was on like the Packers practice squad and things like that. And then I think he got traded or he got waived and the Bengals picked him up. And I remember him telling me one time when I met him when I was doing radio down there that the culture of going from, and this is not just me like saying it as a Packers fan, like this is literally just what he told me, but like the culture going from Green Bay and what they have there and how established it is, like Shumpert was talking about earlier, to what the Bengals were like with Marvin Lewis. Like it was, I know Marv had some successful seasons. Now, I don't think he ever won a playoff game and whatnot, but he was just like, it was kind of night and day.
Yeah. Well, we're also seeing it with not just Russ, but you're seeing it with Baker and Sam Darnold too. Like they've both kind of revived their careers. I mean, they went to, Carolina, and it seems like Carolina was the dungeon that you had been, banished to. And then Baker gets out to I really think that year with Sean McVay did wonders for him. So then to go there, get that experience, maybe change the way he sees the field a little bit, and then move out to Tampa Bay, have some success, and then ultimately get signed and kind of bring your career back. And then same with Sam. You're being relegated to a backup guy. JJ McCarthy's the guy, but unfortunately he goes down, and you kind of come in and you do more than just have a serviceable season. Like you have done pretty well for the Vikings. Like they're very much I don't want to say like a Super Bowl contending team, but they are very much a playoff team, and maybe more than just a first round playoff team. But yeah, it's good to see some quarterbacks that we thought were maybe on their way out of the league, kind of rekindle their careers.
Yeah, it just kind of sucked though when you force him into your lineup in fantasy because he's playing the shitty Jags defense and he throws 3 picks. Like that was real cool, Sam.
Yep, we appreciate that, Sam. Thanks.
What a dick. And Aaron Jones gets hurt, and Jordan Addison I had to force into a lineup with Amari Cooper, who has had one game in which he caught a touchdown pass for the Bills, and other than that, he can't get his damn ass on the field. So I'm a little frustrated.
Fantasy will do that to you, brother. Fantasy will do that to you.
It will. It will. And even with Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions last night, I had to absolutely sweat it out in one of my leagues because I was down a little bit and I had Goff and Amon-Ra, and they found a way, somehow. Thank God for that last touchdown. If it weren't for that last touchdown, I would have lost. And him having started Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Clutch, baby.
Yeah. Big time. Well, that's all I got on the NFL. You got anything else you want to throw out?
No, man. I think did we touched on the Chiefs, right?
Nope. Chase mentioned them very briefly, but
I brought them up when you disconnected. I said I don't know what voodoo lady they brought out there to midfield and whatever chant she did.
Taylor
but
Swift,
the Chiefs are 9-0. Maybe it was her in a robe and her and Travis Kelce did. I don't know, man. But they got. I went over the schedule briefly. They've got the Bills coming up this weekend. If they don't lose that game, if they beat the Bills, then I mean it's the Panthers, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Browns, and the Texans.
They'll find a way to lose one game this season at least. I am fully confident that they'll find a way to lose one game. And this is just, as you know, it's very difficult to go undefeated in the National Football League during the regular season.
Extremely.
I remember the year after the Green Bay Packers won the Super Bowl in 2010. The next year in 2011, they were flying. They were like 13, 14-0, something like that. And they lost to a real shitty Kansas City Chiefs team, of course, with Romeo Crennel at the helm. Game they should not have lost. So don't be surprised if Kansas City finds a way to like lose a game to the Chargers, or if can you imagine if Bryce Young and Dave Canales beat them?
I would love that, dude. It'd be so good. I want somebody to save Bryce Young because I'm not ready to give up on him.
He's looked okay.
I'm not ready.
He's looked okay.
I'm not ready to say that he was the problem in Carolina. Like I need somebody to save my guy. Because I thought I was super high. Like I was really high on CJ Stroud. I was just as high on Bryce Young when both of them were coming out. I was like, these two guys are going to be incredible. Mostly because I'd watched Bryce Young do things to Georgia that no one else had done. I was
just going to say, as a Georgia fan, you saying that sounds weird. You're a guy.
Yeah,
Bryce
no,
Young.
dude. I was like, I was super high on him because I was like, dude, this guy's he's cerebral. He doesn't get rattled. He sees the field well. Like he was the single reason that Bama didn't go 8-5 the year they went and played Texas. Like he's just. I watched him do it to some of the best in college, and I know there's a step up to the league. By no means am I trying to say there's not, but I just hope somebody gets him out of the blue hell that is Carolina.
Yeah, you don't have any faith that Dave Canales will be able to help revitalize his career there?
I can say I have faith in the head coach, but I don't trust the front office, and I don't trust the owner to not somehow find a way to screw that up. So, like, because the head, remind me his name again, the head coach,
Dave Canales.
Dave Canales.
Dave Canales, yeah, from Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I could see Canales finding some momentum and finding a way and starting to build something with Bryce, and then Tepper's the owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
His last name? Okay, I wanted to make sure I said it right.
Yep.
Somehow blowing that up and be like, yeah, we're going to trade Bryce. What? We just started doing something here. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a hater. Could be.
Yeah, could be. They brought him in to sort of be like he really helped, with Baker Mayfield, kind of helping turn him around with that offense. And maybe it wasn't so much him because obviously he's still playing well without him there. But I think they were hiring him as an offensive guy, hoping that would really help turn Bryce around a little bit. And you know what? You either get him out of there, or I just think, again, you've got to continue to build up that offensive line, and
give him more time.
Yeah, that's really the biggest thing when it comes to quarterbacks. Like, you can put whoever you want on the outside. If you give a quarterback time, they'll find a way. Bryce Young's athletic enough where he's mobile enough too, where I saw him scramble a couple of times against the Giants and things like that. So he'll figure it out, but you have to give him time. You have to give him protection. It's like, if it were me, you can have Xavier Legette as the number one if you want. Ian Thomas is still there. I know they had Jonathan Mingo, traded him away. They've got some other, like younger wide receiving pieces there. Just let those guys grow with Bryce. Yeah. And then just put all your resources into the offensive line and the defense. You've got J.C. Horn, a really nice piece there as well. And I don't think their defense is god awful. They have some decent pieces on the defense. Again, I really just believe it comes down to solidifying the offensive line. We've got the running games going well. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard just got signed. Don't know if that's the best place you should have spent your money, but it's fine. Jonathan Brooks will be there. Miles Sanders sucks. He's washed. He's like Jay Ajayi from back in the day. He's got no. I don't.
What a pull!
I was just thinking about that over the weekend when I was listening to all the games when I was driving back from Georgia this weekend. It was just like they're talking about Miles Sanders, and I was like, this really feels like Jay Ajayi when he went to the Eagles. He just sucked.
His time has come and gone.
Yeah.
And it's an unfortunate reality with running backs, but I feel like that's one position that when they're done, they're done. It's hard to revive that. I mean, it kind of happened with Todd Gurley. For as great as he was, when he was done, he was done. It was just, he tried to bring it back in Atlanta, and it's unfortunate, because he was incredible, but it's just the tail of the tape with running backs, man. It's right now feels like the most expendable position in the league, and it's an unfortunate reality.
That it is. And what another unfortunate reality is that this show is finally coming to an end. This might be the longest show we've ever done.
I think a little over 2 hours. Yeah, I think it is. But it's a good one.
That it is. No, I mean, I always enjoy them. They're always really good. And what's funny is and I know we've talked about this before, but sometimes you're going throughout your day and I'm like, yes, I'm excited to do the show, but I'm also I'm tired from the day, and I know this is going to be an hour plus, and I'm my back is going to be bothering me a little bit. It's been bothering me this whole time sitting here on this weird chair that I'm not sure why it's bothering me. I just don't understand it, but that's maybe just me being older, and my back's, not in the great shape. Getting needled on Tuesday, though, very excited about that. Hopefully that'll help loosen things up. But yeah, you come into it maybe a little tired, and then you just get on, and you find some wind.
Yeah, you roll through it's like when you roll into the first segment, and it's just like, oh yeah, man, okay, let's talk about some sports. It's just fun, man.
Football.
Just fun.
Football. Yeah, yay sports. And it was interesting. This is a weird show because it was me, you, Chase. Then Miggie figured it out, and then Shump was on for a while. Then Shump dropped. Then Chase dropped, then Miggie dropped, then it was us. It's we've done I feel like we've done 2 or 3 different shows in one show.
we did 2-minute offense, and there was a bunch of audibles. We just kind of figured it out. So
that there was. All right. Well, I want to say thank you again to Ryan Shumpert for joining us and jumping in with us. Find him all over social media at rshump00. That's RSCHUMPT. Shump, no T, sorry, no T, just Shump 00. Get all of his great stuff on RockyTopInsider.com. And if you're looking for a place to read about, all things Tennessee Vols, check out Rocky Top Insider. They also do a podcast themselves. he's on that. It's they do a lot of great content on there. I always enjoy reading their stuff. That was like a staple for me when I was doing sports talk radio on ESPN Chattanooga. I was always all over that website. And yeah, so and we appreciate everybody jumping in with us. Like we're nearing 100 people watching us on the show right now. We're 2 hours in, Jay. Like we started low, but like people jumped in with Shump and they've just continued to stay. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here with us. We're gonna make it. Just got to keep building, keep sharing. It would be really helpful if you saw our stuff, followed along with us on social media at Chatted Up Sports, and just like and share all of our stuff like that we post out there. Like that would be a great way for you to help us out. And then rate and subscribe us on all podcasting platforms wherever you get your podcasts as well. Jay, do you have anything to add as we close it up here?
I'm good, man. Just make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, and interact with us. We love interaction, whether it's on social media, whether it's during the live shows. I know we've had as many listeners and watchers as we've had in a while. I think that surprisingly, the NFL like draft live show that we did had a bleep ton of watchers, so that was cool.
Yeah,
that was fun. It's always good to do live shows and get after it. But yeah, just interact with us. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on our content or anything we talk about and whatnot. But we'll definitely clip some stuff. We'll be putting some stuff out there. We're going to try to get back out into the community. We got the Teddy Bear Drive. We're going to talk more about that as the holidays are approaching with Hits 96 and Gino D. Mike's Hole in the Wall. We got a lot of good stuff coming for you. So have a great rest of your week. We will see you out there at Mike's on Thursday evening. For Joseph Guthrie, Ryan Shumperts, our good friend Chase Green, and Malcolm Harrison, the only member we didn't see tonight, Garrett Tolley. I'm Greg Larnard. Follow us all over Chatted Up Sports. We love yous. Have a great evening. We'll catch you on Thursday. Peace.